So, welcome. We're very excited to have you here on this webinar with us. So, as you know, Dr. Barber mentioned, this is going to be about starting the year off right, leading from the inside out. I am Aaron Marsh, and Dr. Barber just got us going on this webinar, and we're very excited to have you here with us for the next 40-ish minutes. So, we are very, very excited. And in starting the year off right, we believe that you should always start by welcoming our guests. So our next slide is all about the welcome. So in welcoming, every one of us as school leaders has to have a meeting to start off the year, whether that meeting is with our admin team, whether that meeting is with teachers, we're meeting with our staff. So we have this little activity that we kind of want you guys to do. This is going to be interactive. If we didn't mention this in the beginning, like get ready. So Kelly, Faison, Bill, Norm, Christine, just get ready to use the chat. Get ready to unmute. Like we really want this to be interactive. So in two sentences or less, we want you guys to use the chat box and we want to know what do you intentionally do during your first meeting to set the tone for the year? What is a message, activity, or tradition you believe has the greatest impact on building a successful school year? Right? So in two sentences or less. And then we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit. So let's see what comes up in the chat. Okay, so I'm putting mine here in the chat. Okay. Christine says she provides time for the human aspect of back to school, allow teachers time to talk and share their summers as well as their goals for the new year. I love that. I said I start with celebrations. Bill shared that he thinks the key is finding out what has worked in the previous year and what is a concern. Also, the meeting should be very interactive, and I would model the very same strategies that I would hope the teacher would use. Great. So, Bill, let's kind of go with that. Like what you're the administrator of XX school. Let's have you unmute. What what's one thing you're walking into that very first faculty meeting and you're modeling a strategy? What's one of those strategies you would use?
One thing that I often do, and I think you've already modeled it in this meeting, is getting teachers to write quickly things down and then turn and talk, add something to their partner, and report out. Um, I think it's really important to make sure everyone is participating in what you hope that would be a strategy that teachers would use with their own students, finding out about them, getting people talking, and then getting teachers to listen to each other. So really trying not to repeat and try to get other teachers to respond, modeling those sort of talk moves that you would hope teachers would um, be able to implement in their classrooms to say it's not just about me talking to you, Aaron Marsh, but bringing Norm in, bringing Faizan, Christine, to try to get that, to model that as much as possible.
Also, so Faison, I see you said in our first meeting, my admin team would ask us to frame goals and mindset in the language of the school's core values. Could you speak a little more to that?
So I'm not, just for a bit more context to me, I'm not coming into this as someone from the school leadership position. So I was a teacher. And it's one thing my principal always had us start whenever we would come back from like a break or the new school year would be, as I said, it's like our school had four core values. Perseverance was one of them, for example. So we would talk about how What are our goals for the year through the lens of something like community, through the lens of something like persistence, through the lens of something like critical thinking, which were some of our core values. So just kind of we're coming into this space reflecting, but also making sure our goals are aligning with like the school's overall mission. So kind of just in terms of building that school culture, that's what that is achieving.
Excellent. And I think Bill and Faison and what I'm seeing in the chat, what we're all getting to here is really kind of norm setting, norm, that's no pun intended, but really normalizing and setting the intentions for the school year. And I think what we're hearing, or what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's really about building that trust. And in building that trust, you're really building up something that starts with the word R. I'm thinking of something that starts with the word R and ends in an S. Can anybody guess what I'm thinking here? We come
Hmm.
back, we're people, we're humans, everybody's saying we're interacting and we're building these. Someone can unmute or they could type it in the chat, just whatever you think the guess is.
Begins with an R and ends with an S.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Bill.
Okay, there we go,
Exactly.
Bill. Absolutely. I was hoping it wasn't rule. Because
Relationships. Yes. Oh, Norm, I didn't see you. Norm said it first. Sorry. Relationships. Yes. So, relationships is what ultimately we are looking to build. So, if we stop for just a quick second before we progress with the tap here, we said starting the school year off the right, WRITE way. So notice what we're doing, and this goes back to what Bill said. We're intentionally modeling here what we would expect to see in our meetings for our teachers and our school leaders. So this way, it's translating for them to show them what they can do in their rooms, so this way, we kind of have this culture of this is how we all think and this is how we all move. And I think at the end of the day, when we connect back, that W was about the welcome. The R is about the relationships. So we have a quick little thumbs up here for you. And if we just give us a little tap there, Christine, give us a thumbs up if you've seen meaningful relationships positively impact teacher morale, collaboration, or student success. You could use your chat reactions down at the bottom. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So it seems that we all agree that meaningful relationships positively impact teacher morale, collaboration, student success. All right, Christine, we'll give it another tap. Give us a thumbs up if you believe that when people feel valued, they're more willing to embrace new learning and change. Okay, seeing those thumbs up. Great. Okay. So, really, at its core, when we start the school year off, we really want to, step one, welcome our really our stakeholders. That's what I'm going to say, because it's not just about our teachers, right? It's our teachers, it's our custodians, it's our support staff. So we really want everyone to feel welcomed into the community. And we really want to start building that relationship, because once we make people feel welcomed and we start building those relationships, then it allows us to move into the work. And the work is instruction. Dr. Barber?
yes, so this is our burning question, right? So everything we do, we want to frame around this kind of question, right? So if we want our students to be lifelong learners, what do we model for them? How do we really define what we're saying and what we're doing so that they're in alignment? I know I've been at many faculty meetings and leaders end up spewing lots of sound, not not purposely, but what it sounds like, it ends up being like that Charlie Brown teacher. Rah, 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 rah. So one of the things that's really important as we look at leading the way, the research supports this. So research supports that as leaders, when we're participating in that same learning with everyone else as our community, that the implementation fidelity just doubles. And so with that, can you click on that one, Christine? Thank you. Thumbs up if this is your school or your district, that you have a leader who models, who's there with you, doing the work. So in the chat, thank you, Erin. Thank you, Norm. And if you don't, that's okay, because that's what we're talking about. Those are one of the things that really take time to develop, to make sure that we're aware that these are practices that help to build our teams. The hard truth is that when we look at our PD budgets as administrators and leaders, and as teachers even, the budgets end up not supporting the leadership, and ends up being that leaders can feel isolated on the job, enormous pressure, feeling as if they are on an island. And both Aaron and I teach for administrators. And one of the things that we both talked about was that sense of being isolated and how easy it is, and how we make sure we talk with administrators about building their own teams. And then the opportunity, the highest leverage point of any school improvement effort, it's not about the stuff. We can have lots of stuff. We can have the best books, the best trainings, but really that leader is the one who creates those conditions for all those things to work. And one of those important practices that leaders end up doing when they're modeling all this is that their teams feel safe to come to them. They're modeling what it's like to be in that place of action versus reaction. We know as teachers, we train them for that. We want them to be able to demonstrate that they're a human being, that they're with their teams rather than talking to their teams. That is the big difference in a leader who's able to really build a supportive community. So if you were to write one sentence about your own personal experience, Faison, I know you said you're not in a leadership position, but I'd like you to think about, everybody, what does your professional learning look like right now as you're heading into the new school year? So I'm going to give you a minute to think, some think time around this. You can either unmute or put it in the chat. So Bill, was that your most schools was the other question I asked? I missed that one, sorry. So what do we got in terms of thinking ahead? What does your professional development look like? What are you planning to open your year with for yourself? So we talked about opening a meeting. So Norm, so when you're thinking about the leaders that you work with, they're all in for relationships and collective teacher efficacy. Absolutely. So you already are in a community that wants to build the supports of your leader with your teams. Great. And then Christine, yeah, finding time to keep up to date on late developments in education research, retrieval, AI, meaningful PD. Absolutely. So for you, that's on your plate. And so these align with, as a leader, what are your intentions? What are your goals? It's very easy to get lost in the weeds of thinking about everybody else. I also think of leadership almost as the parent of the group. And we know as parents, if any of us are parents here, how easy it is to take care of everybody else. And then we step back and we think about, I'm exhausted. I've done so much. So we're talking here about the capacity to build with your teams, to grow with your teams. That takes intention, that takes work. Anybody else? No, we're good. Okay, but yeah, do you have a question, Aaron?
Yeah, I just, Faison was mentioning, Faison, you said you're a teacher, right? I think this is a great opportunity to like even like pause and connect and hear from a teacher's perspective, like what as a school leader. So for me as an assistant principal or a mathematics director or ELA director, like what kind of professional development would you like to see?
That's a big question. So, yeah.
And you can unmute, you can put it in the chat. You could also say, no, thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you honestly, one or two major kinds of PDs that I always felt were either lacking or not given enough, I guess, time and nuance would be PDs related to MLL and SPED accommodations. I think
Mm,
a lot of the times they were often considered like the same thing or grouped together as two-in-one type PDs. And there was very much this mindset of the strategies for one will work in the other interchangeably, which I think is true at a broad sense, but as we all know, there's so much hyperspecificity and individuality needed for those two communities. Um, as each teacher knows well, the IEPs, yet their trainings are often lumped together, which to me seems counter to their goals. So I think more specific and intuitive trainings related to that would be helpful.
Excellent. And Aaron, I appreciate you asking him that question because what you just did was open up the dialogue for honest conversations. And if we really don't take the time to lead in ways which invite that kind of feedback, it becomes very difficult to lead everybody in our teams to where they need to be. So as a leader, we're always listening, learning, thinking, connecting, making those pieces so that we bring that work full circle in ways that help everybody make those connections. Great. Next slide. So we're going to do an exercise here, and it's a little exercise on what do we notice. So I'm going to ask you to look at this photograph and think about what do you notice on this picture. And we're going to do the same thing with this photo crawl on the next few slides. So this is a situation, if you can't read it, I'll read it to you. A teacher had asked a student to define a plot and list 5 stages that make it up. So if we think about this and we look at this, I want you to take a moment just to read it before I go into what I want to say about it. So you can see here, if you were a teacher coming over this student, and if you were an administrator coming to help lead this teacher, there'd be many ways that you can approach this. So I see some laughing. I know that this student was obviously really bright, right? He used his thinking to get to the point, right? He obviously doesn't understand the plot or the story, but he was able to articulate his thoughts on paper. So I want to hear from all of you. What do you think of this? I is as a person who's going in to guide a classroom leadership for teachers. Our choices are what guides those relationships. And as now we're talking about instruction, right? So the I for instruction is how do we move our instruction? There's meaningful conversations between all parties. So I'm looking at some things here. Norm, it says to me that as a teacher, I need to teach this idea of plot in a very different way. That could be one thing, yes. And Bill, you said lots of effort went in, right? So you could direct and ask for more about the squirrel and develop an idea of a plot with the squirrel. So how are we taking what our students are giving us and making it meaningful, right? So that's one of the things that's really important. Yes, you follow the directions, Faison, despite not knowing the answer. Clever student, needs to focus. There's many ways, and as a leader, what we want to do is think about the context of something before we evaluate. It's very easy to evaluate something and come to a conclusion instead of really just looking at what could this mean. And so as a leader, when we talk about assessment, it's not just about a number or a score. We're looking at this process of learning. And one of the things around writing is it gives us insight into that metacognitive process. So as a teacher, we might think, wow, I taught that well. I know, we went over this a million times, but when we do something like this and we get this, the question is, what do we do? So how do we coach our teachers so that that feedback is helpful for them and helps them to grow rather than, kind of stumbling with, I don't know what to do with this. And I think that there's many teachers and leaders who get stuck in not knowing what to do with this. So these are great ideas. I appreciate everybody putting it in the chat because this is the direction we want to go in. We want to take what we have and work with it and develop it. Awesome. So we're going to go to the next slide. Thank you, Christine. And so in this slide, we're moving to the T, which is the thinking part of right. And as you're looking at these two pictures, I'd like you to just study them for a moment and think about what are you inferring about these pictures that might impact how you coach a teacher in a classroom. What's the first thing that you think of when you look at these two pictures and what do you infer? We could just unmute our mics for this and just have a little dialogue if that's okay. Yes, William, Bill, thank you.
I mean, it jumps about it is the top one suggests more of a stand and deliver a style of teaching, and the second one looks much more active. But I would say in the top one, it looks like most of the students are paying attention, focused on the teacher. And I think that often when I'm working with teachers, I try to really talk about what was really positive. And so if I was looking at the top teacher, I wouldn't lead with, it seems like everyone's in rows and, they're all listening to you at the center. But I would say there's a lot good going on in that top picture as well, if this is a direct instructional type of part of the lesson. And then in the second one, you might think, oh, this looks so much better, but you might also wonder, is everybody engaged fully, or are some people off task? But the main thing in number two is it does look like you can visibly see that everyone's very active, at least.
At least that's what you're inferring, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm inferring. Yeah, that guy has the
and that's the
guy,
point of this, right?
yeah, the guy has the pencil in the mouth. He's watching the other guy. So they all look pretty engaged. That guy has his hand on his head. He's wondering about what to do next. So yeah, I would say in the bottom one, it does appear that the students are very engaged. You can see evidence of that. And you can see it in the top picture too. They're looking at the teacher, but they're not really.
Anybody else? Thank you for that, though.
I would say the top picture, well, the bottom picture provides us with more visible evidence of the student thinking. So we can guess that students are focused in the top picture because they're all kind of looking at the teacher. But in the bottom one, we can see, even if we're not sure if they're on task, we can see on the vertical surfaces, whether they're on their way to the right solution, whether they're answering the right question. We can listen to hear what their conversations are. So we have more of that visible evidence. We know we don't have to infer as much, and because of that visibility.
Yep. So those are more inferences. So one of the things that we want to know is that inferences can really limit and shape the feedback that we can give a teacher after a classroom observation. And how they can limit us is what they do is they, obviously they get in our way, but most leaders really recognize after working on it for some time, the importance of separating inference from observation. And if we don't separate inference from observation, what ends up happening is we're describing situations that we walk into with a mindset of thinking how it will be. And so that kind of training is really a critical part of learning how to build our thinking about what we're seeing. Because if we see something and automatically label it, we're not really looking deeper into what that means. And on the prior slide, we could make some inferences, and somebody wrote that in the comment, that the student really doesn't get what was taught. That inference could be dangerous because it might be in the way that question was framed. It might be in the way the student wrote that down because they were just being snarky. So we really need to dig deeper when we're looking at evidence of learning. And when we're doing work in leadership, we end up often walking in small snippets into classrooms, and hopefully we're doing that, as Kim Marshall talks about in his work, about doing mini classroom observations. And the purpose of that is to just keep building your ability to look and notice and listen. Those skills are really undervalued, and we get so caught up in the clipboard or the notes on the rubrics that we're using, and that impedes our ability to not only think, but build on those relationships that we were talking about before. Next slide, Christine. Thank you. So, whoops, wrong one. I apologize. We're going to go back and stop and jot, which I missed that. So we stopped and talk and we didn't stop and jot. My apologies. So we're not going to jot. We jotted with our words. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you, Christine. So if we look at this slide, I want you to look at photo A and photo B, and I want you to think about which one shows more engagement. What do we think? Visible thinking, Aaron. Evidence shown more in the second picture. Absolutely. How would you describe that? What would you say? And just give you a moment to talk about that.
That was from the last slide, but this time I said I think A and B are equal. I can explain, but I don't want to give it away. In my opinion, I think the reason why I think they're equal is because if I was circulating around room A, I think I would be able to hear exactly what students are doing, and like as the teacher or the leader, to be able to figure out where maybe I need to like push the thinking, or where I maybe need to kind of adjust the lesson or the dialogue. Whereas in photo B, the student is explicitly letting me know what that student in particular needs. So like if I see a kid that comes up and takes time, then I know that that student needs more time. If I see a student come up and take explanation, I know that the way that I explained it did not work for that student. So I think I can get the reason why I said A equals B, because I think I can get from both pictures similar responses.
Anybody else want to take a shot at it? I'm going to just say that as a leader, when we go back to the prior slide too, is that when we're inferring things, photo B leaves us less room for inference. And so what we're looking to do is to create opportunities so that we're making sure that when we're looking at learning, that it becomes more explicit and clear to what's going on, what do they know, what do they need, and how do we as leaders, as teachers, really keep things moving so that they're working on a place where their needs are getting met. That's it. Anybody else? I'm going to go to the next slide. And there's my dog, and I apologize for that. So, what do you use to collect evidence of student learning? I'm going to ask, I apologize for my dog here. What do you use to collect evidence of student learning? And what does that look like? Anybody? So I know that when I go in, and similar to that last picture, and I just keep going back to remember the prior slide, is that I really want to make sure that whatever evidence is there, it's something that speaks as clearly as possible to what they know, what they do, and how they feel about that information. So some of that evidence might be collections of their writings, like in that slide prior, about three slides before. It might be evidence of their conversations in a think, pair, share. It might be opportunities for them to think about writing on big posters on the wall. So what you're doing is seeing in action where they're processing or not processing that learning. Anybody have anything else to add? And if you notice, I didn't say anything about what they were putting into a computer. I
So
didn't.
Bill had mentioned he thinks exit tickets and entrance tickets, and midway through the lesson tickets. Christine mentioned lots of thinking on paper, quick writes, adding notes during student conversations. Norm mentioned discussions, active listening, and various writing samples.
Awesome. So these are things that we know that help us build those collections of evidence. We want to talk about then what do we do with all of this? We're going to move into some of those action steps.
So really, if we just pull the whole piece together, right? So if we go back to the beginning, and this is my shameless plug for AI, for those of us that are this is very AI generated. The only thing that the AI got wrong is the fact that Barbara's hair should be blonde, and it's not blonde here in, in this picture. But otherwise, I did prompt AI with like our thinking and what we were looking to do to kind of generate this. So for my educational leaders who are watching this later or who are watching this now, AI is an excellent tool and can make things fun and interesting. And this is just an example of it. But for me, right, I believe that as a leader, as an educational leader, my role is to set the stage, set the tone, empower people, and elevate learning. Those are my core beliefs that I think that every leader should have, right? So I prompted this to put it in like a theater show. So this way you could kind of like see it like on that stage. And when we say right, welcome, R, build the relationships. I understand the instruction. And when we talk about instruction, there are two types of instruction, right? At least I like to talk about two types of instruction. There's the hidden instruction, and then there's the explicit instruction, right? So that explicit instruction is, I'm going into science and I'm going to learn about photosynthesis. I'm going into math and we're going to learn about ratios. Then there's that hidden instruction, which really talks about the cultural norms that the building has. And this goes back to what Faison was kind of saying about the core mission and values, right? That's like really in that hidden instructional piece, right? How students are lining up, right? What classrooms look like? Do classrooms look like the more traditional classroom? Our classrooms set up more in the pods and more in think tanks, right? Like that's kind of hidden instruction. Then we have the thinking piece, and I think this thinking piece is huge. And we have lots of people at, College Education Associates. We are thinkers. I will go out on a limb to say that we are all thinkers, and we believe in making thinking visible, and we do it all in different ways. But like thinking is huge. And then that last piece is evidence. And I think sometimes as an administrator, and I'll speak for myself, I don't want to speak for anyone else, is that I forgot to write initially in the school year. I jumped into the managerial side of what it feels like to be an administrator. Oh, I got to get this. I got to tell teachers this. Da, 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 da. And I have this lofty agenda where it's like a whole bunch of check boxes where, the welcome was real quick, a quick little slideshow playing. And then I was like, okay, great. You guys are welcome. Hi, everybody. Relationships are built. Let's get into like the nuts and bolts. And it's really like, no, no. Like, I really do need to spend the time welcoming. I do need to spend the time building those relationships. My faculty meetings, my department meetings should feel like instructional time, right? And that instructional time should look like what you guys all mentioned. We should be doing quick writing. We should be doing turn in talks. We should be doing talk moves. We should be having a good time in that space as we're learning. As I'm teaching, I should be modeling how to make thinking visible so my staff can see what we should be doing in our classroom. And me and my team should be collecting evidence to ensure that we're doing that the right way. And so we can come back and evaluate, did we meet our goals and objectives? And if we didn't, how do we come back and assess, or how do we come back and remodel that so they walk away with the objectives and the goals that we set forth. So this is what we mean by right. And notice there is a kind of pun on the word right, because I think what I was doing is I was doing RIGHT, which is I wanted to get the school year started off right. Because I wanted to make sure I dotted every I and crossed every T. So again, it felt more managerial rather than um, rather
Leader.
than this whole kind of like this whole person. I don't want to say whole teacher because it's more than just teachers, right? So the whole stakeholders, that's the word that I want to use here. So this is a great visual, and I really enjoy it, and it kind of breaks down. You'll see like in the little pieces it has for leaders, for staff, for students. It was very intentional, the prompting that I have in here. Maybe this is a little tidbit, prompting for leaders, right? That might be a course that you might see Collins Education come out with in the future. So be on the lookout for that.
I just want to add something, Erin, if you don't mind, because I think for what you said was really critical. Starting a staff meeting. If we're just coming into a staff meeting with our notes, with our ideas, and we're really being stuck with that level one, like the act one of welcome, what ends up happening, it's like being in Bloom's, right? So if we look at Bloom's order of thinking, it's just that knowledge base, and we're not able to work with our team. So we want to get to that place of analysis and synthesis and all those pieces that get the brains going about what's going to happen this year, because you're setting the stage when you have your faculty meeting, your opening faculty meetings. Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks, Erin.
So Christine, we'll jump to the next one. So this is just a quick overview of what we offer, or I shouldn't even say what we offer. This is the foundation of what Collins Education does, right? It is steeped in writing, right? And what we do here is we provide teachers, schools, and districts with a unified, research-based writing program that can be used successfully in all classrooms across all subject areas. So yes, I'm saying writing, and yes, we do this in math. Yes, I'm saying writing. Yes, we do this in social studies. Yes, I'm saying writing. Yes, we do this in science, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is essentially what we do. And we also do this with leaders. As you can see, what we've been trying to do is have you be interactive throughout this entire presentation and capture quick ideas, right? we that's an example of type one, excuse me, writing, and we've been doing that all throughout this presentation. So that's like an example of modeling. If we were in person, we would have definitely have you do some type two and some type three as well. but this is something that as a company, and Christine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this is the foundation in which we build upon to come into your school and help your school meet goals, reach milestones, and do anything that you want to do. We come in and we bring our foundation and we help you get there. So that's what we do in Collins. And Christine, if you can jump 2 slides, just because I'm mindful of timing.
Mm-hmm. And everybody will have copies of this.
Yes, yes, you'll all have copies of this. What we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of bring you guys together and have you do a little bit more of that type two, but we're 2 minutes out to the end. So I just want to kind of let you know what this would have looked like if we didn't get so excited in the beginning, is we would have you kind of like set up your 2 minute opening, right? And again, it would have connected back to our right framework, if you will, which is welcome, relationships, instruction, thinking, and evidence. Um, and we would have had you guys kind of share out, right? And this would have been an example of something that you all could have done in your, or something you could have created to do in your first faculty meeting. So we hope you get the opportunity to at least try something like this. I don't know, maybe Dr. Barber and I will kind of record ourselves going through it, and we
Yeah.
can maybe send that out so you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like and kind of talk through that as well. But this was kind of setting the stage. And then, Christine, if you go 2 more slides, Dr. Barber will
Hmm.
kind of bring us home.
So what if you were to bring in Collins Education Associates into your organization? How amazing that would be, and how would that shift your schools? So all the things that we've been talking about are those practices that leaders do and model and bring to the energy of the room, rather than sending out memos, rather than relying on technology, really putting those thoughts out there. So think about your current situation of where you are in your school, and what would you like to see? How would this shift the practices? Right now, do you have principals walking into classrooms really prepared to listen, look, notice before they're inferring? Even though they might say they do with the Danielson or whatever rubrics you're using for observations, it's very easy to get caught up in the checkbox. This isn't about check boxes. This is about relationships. This is about all those pieces that we've just talked about. Anybody have anything to share with that? Thank you for using the chat. Let's see. We got lots of type 1 writings in here, which is amazing. We got lots of ideas. Yes, thinking is a priority, that's for sure. So if we're taking the time to build on that thinking and inviting other leaders to think with us, what do we want it to be? Absolutely. Anything else to add? Yeah. So how you made relationships central to the learning. Thank you so much, Bill Atwood. We appreciate that, because that is the key. And we know it, we talk about it, we learn it in school. But at the same time, it's very easy to get caught up in the stuff, the things that you want to do. Any other additions? So we are so thrilled that you joined us. We will have this webinar live. You'll see on our last slide here, we have lots of resources, ideas, training updates. The leadership piece is in concert with the other work that's going on. So we found that in schools, a principal or a district level leader might bring somebody in to do that training. And then what ends up happening is, from a system perspective, you've got pockets of really good stuff. However, the leader has the ability to really look at, how do we systemically build these into our system? And how do we make sure that good stuff sustains over time? And that's really what the heart of this work is that we are building. Any questions before we log off? And we'll stay around for a couple questions afterwards.
I just want to thank Barbara and Aaron for this great presentation. So many great ideas. And another plug, if you scan this QR code, you will have multiple options for how you can continue to stay connected with what we are doing. Most of you are already on our newsletter list. That's how you knew about this series of webinars. But if you're not following us on your social media platform of choice, this code will also allow you to find us there very easily with one click. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I am going to stop the recording, but please let us know if you have any questions. We're not going to hop off just yet.